Week 6 is already here in Iowa high school football, which is pretty crazy to think about. But nevertheless, it's a Monday, which means I've got rankings for you. This one being the 8-man rankings video. So without further ado, let's get right into this. As you can see, we've got our rankings graphic for this week. 8-man coming up, starting with 16 through 11. Let me turn my camera back on, and let's get right into it. Lone Tree, they enter our ranks after beating Edgewood Colesburg 39-22. Edgewood Colesburg, sorry. And Glidden Ralston, they are also new to our rankings. They beat Collins Maxwell 38-6. Glidden Ralston moves to 4-1. Audubon, they move up 2 spots after beating Coon Rapids Bear 22-16, and also moving up just 1 spot. Southeast Warren, they beat Murray 56-39. And the rest of the way, I'm not going to lie, there is not a ton of movement just because these teams are not losing. Iowa Valley, they did not have a game. They stay at number 12. And Clarksville, they win their big rivalry against Turkey Valley 62-22. That is your team of the week in Class 8, man. So congrats to Clarksville. But without further ado, I'm going to get right into it. I'm not going to waste any time. Let's get into the top 10 in Class 8, man. Don Bosco, they beat West Central 58-0. The Dons were able to shut out West Central on a rainy Friday night. With this win, Don Bosco moves to 4-1 on the season. That only loss coming in Week 1 to Gladbrook-Reinbeck. And might I say, that was a really competitive game back in Week 1. So Don Bosco, their one loss coming to in a really competitive game to the top dog Gladbrook-Reinbeck. At number 9, Lennox, they beat East Union 54-8. Lennox was able to get out to a 54-point lead before East Union was finally able to score in the fourth quarter. Gabe Funk threw for 3 touchdowns, and Jordan Martin England was able to find the end zone 3 times, 2 rushing and 1 receiving. As Lennox, they hold down the number 9 spot. Also holding down their spot, number 8, Waco, they beat Easton Valley 56-14. The Warriors were able to move on to 4-1 on the season. Hunter Hughes, a punt block to return to the house and added a receiving touchdown. Again, Waco, their lone loss coming to a top 5 team, Winfield Mount Union. I'm not going to spoil what number, even though I'm sure you guys know by now, you 8-man fans out there. At number 7, Central City, their game against Calamus Wheatland looked like it was postponed to Monday. So as you're watching this, it will be a Monday. So that team will play tonight. I'm assuming Central City comes out with a win there. I'd say they're pretty favored over Calamus Wheatland. So looking to hold down that number 7 spot. At number 6, Moravia, they beat Twin Cedars 60-6. Moravia got the whole team involved on Friday. 8 different Mohawks found the end zone. Yes, you heard that right. 8 guys scored. An 8-man, 8 guys scored. That's pretty crazy for Moravia. They got everybody involved. That is always good to see. Without further ado, let's head into your top 5. As you can see, no movement because no one's losing. This 8-man class is so competitive, and really these teams are just waiting for someone to slip up, and no one's doing that right now. But nevertheless, the top 5 teams, let's get into it. Bedford beat Mormon Trail 76-6. Nick had Mormon Trail as his upset pick. Not a great pick, Nick. I don't know if you're listening to this, but they win 76-6. Bedford does over Mormon Trail. Run heavy attack as they stayed perfect. 11 different Bulldogs carried the ball. Silas Walston went over 100 yards on only 5 carries for 4 touchdowns. Talk about efficiency. So Bedford, I'll call them the kind of Cinderella team because they kind of came out of nowhere in these rankings, and they've got some big wins already, and they find themselves undefeated in top 5 after what I believe they weren't even ranked in our first poll. No, they were not. So from unranked to number 5, and a pretty unanimous number 5 team, I should say, or top 5 team, I should say. At number 4, Remsen St. Mary's, they beat Newell Fonda 51-18. Remsen had been leaning a little bit more on last year's results than this year's results for their high school high ranking so far. This win over an always tough Newell Fonda showed they belong inside the top 5. Again, Remsen has had some close games in the past. Again, last week, 12-7 win. So it was nice for them to come out and really, really put up some points and dominate and prove themselves as a top 5 team in Class 8, man. At number 3, Cam, they beat Exira 36-12. Big rivalry game over there. Cam was held to its lowest total of the year, but still managed to pretty much cruise in a 3-score victory. It was a balanced attack from the Cougars as Chase Speaker threw for 147 yards, and the team combined for 171 rushing yards. So Cam, they hold down that number 3 spot. And looking at number 2, Winfield Mount Union, they beat English Valley 74-6. dominant victory for the Wolves on homecoming night. Winfield Mount Union shared the wealth a little more than usual, as it was Cole Milks leading the way with 3 rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdown as well. As usual, Cam Buffington found the end zone twice in the ground too. Again, Winfield Mount Union, a very good team. They've got some impressive wins already, and they are pretty handily holding down that number 2 spot and waiting to pounce at number 1, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. Gladbrook-Reinbeck, they beat Janesville 38-8. The Rebels finally gave up their first touchdown in a month. Yes, that's right. 4 weeks without giving up a score, the Rebels did, but this week Janesville found the end zone. So kind of worried about that Gladbrook-Reinbeck defense. No, I'm kidding. Isaac Clark and Austin Vaverka each had a pair of touchdowns as Gladbrook-Reinbeck kept on rolling. Gladbrook-Reinbeck, one of 3. There's 7 classes in Iowa, and only 3 of them have had the number 1 team stay at the top spot from wire to this point. That is 6 weeks. So Gladbrook-Reinbeck, a month and a half, holding down the number 1 spot. No signs of slowing down for the Rebels as our pretty unanimous number 1 team throughout the year. But that's going to do it for our 8-man rankings. Please leave a comment, engage, subscribe to IA Sports if you're not already. I think you'd be surprised. A lot of people that watch these are not subscribed to IA Sports. So subscribe to us, help support us, talk high school sports. And nevertheless, we appreciate you guys for tuning in. And I will catch you guys next week for Class 8-man.